What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we are going to talk about the Taft-Hartley Act, or the Labor Management Relations Act of 1947. It was a bill that was written and sponsored by Taft and Hartley, two different senators, one from Jersey, and I can't remember where Taft was from. But the reason this video even comes up is because my last video where I talked about the National Labor Relations Act of 1935, I slipped in speaking and mentioned Taft-Hartley as if it was something good for labor. I misspoke and a commenter pointed it out, and I felt it necessary to correct the record by putting a video out specifically about Taft-Hartley. Now, what was Taft-Hartley? Taft-Hartley was reactionary. That's what that law was. It was big business's response to the National Labor Relations Act of 1935. See, after the National Labor Relations Act passed in 1935, union density skyrocketed. We'll get into the numbers more specifically a little bit later, but union density really rose because of the National Labor Relations Act and also the pro-labor environment of the era in that time. Now, before we go any further, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and drop some comments. Let me know what you think of these videos. The Taft-Hartley Act was enacted over the veto of Harry S. Truman, who was the president at the time. It served as a law that was meant to defang labor by watering down the pro-union National Labor Relations Act of 1935. The reason for this act, or at least what was used to sell it, was a fear of a communist takeover. That was one reactionary response to labor density and power of labor increasing. There was a fear of communists because in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and all the way up until just about the peak of labor, communists and socialists were large parts and reasons for labor's early wins. They lived that worker solidarity, and as a result were successful in winning workers what little decent lives they currently lack appreciation for. We're talking the 40-hour work week, the weekends off, the 8-hour workday. All these things were won in large part because of the activists, communists, socialists, and all these collaborative groups. Now, Republican majorities in both houses sought to destroy unions by shredding the NLRA. It was the first time since 1930 that they had majorities in both the Senate and the House. What did the Taft-Hartley Act do? It established the right to not join unions for employees. It required that unions give 60 days notice in advance of a strike. It authorized an 80-day federal injunction when a strike threatened national health or safety, which could be claimed at any time. It narrowed the definition of unfair labor practices and specified unfair union practices. It restricted union political contributions and required union officers to deny under oath any communist affiliations. You add to the Taft-Hartley Act the Landrum-Griffin Act of '59, which set further union restrictions, barring secondary boycotts and limiting the right to picket. Secondary boycotts, for those who don't know, are solidarity boycotts. What that means is if a company is having a labor dispute, this law makes it illegal for other unions to boycott the business that's having the labor dispute. The Taft-Hartley Act sought to balance the bargaining rights of management and labor. At least that's how they sold it. The National Labor Relations Act of 1935 passed, and by 1947, union density reached its peak at 34% of all jobs. So that means in 1947, 34% of all jobs were union jobs. Can you imagine? Share of the money going to the top 10% of income earners bottomed out at the same 34% during this time. That means that this was the fairest time for income dispersion in the U.S. There was no better time for working people in the U.S. than 47 as far as the share of the income going to the top percent and the amount of union density. After Landrum Griffin passes in 59, union density falls steadily and income going to the top 10% rises steadily to the disparities that they are at today, where union density now is at around 7%. It continued to go this way to this very day when income inequality is at the worst we've ever seen. These corporate Republicans, they're corporate controlled. They just love screwing over working people in favor of the rich. And by 1996, Democrats joined these corporate controlled Republicans in selling out working families to corporate will. It's why we have to pay attention to who is funding campaigns so that we can kick out the corporations from our government. These corporations, by and large, own our government, and it's up to us to be diligent and aware of where their money is going and to which politicians they are spending, so that we can elect folks that are not receiving the money from these corporations, and then be able to get a government that actually represents the people instead of the businesses, which the Supreme Court called people with Citizens United. It's a whole nother story. But anyway, I hope that this clears up any confusion with the last video where I made that mention of Taft-Hartley being something good. That was completely wrong. I misspoke. Taft-Hartley was horrible for labor. It was corporations, empire strikes back, if you will. And we need to do some Return of the Jedi type work. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, y'all keep in mind that the fight is not left and right, it is up and down, and it's going to take solidarity to win always. Don't forget, each one, teach one, get out there and reach one. Peace.